Imagine doctors without a theory of germs, or physicists without a concept of gravity. It sounds completely insane, right? Well, for over a century, one of the most important sciences out there, the science of human behavior, has been admitting it's in exactly that kind of chaos. This is the story of how that science abandoned its most important mission, and what happens when someone else decides to finish the job. Now, this isn't some critic on the outside taking a cheap shot. Nope. This quote, it's from a leading psychologist, Dr. Greg Henriques, talking about his own field. He's calling his own house hopelessly fragmented. And believe me, he is not the first, and he won't be the last. And that right there is the crucial point. This isn't some new controversy. We're talking about a long, documented internal crisis. The field's own top scientists have been ringing the alarm bell for generations, basically screaming, hey everyone, our foundations are cracked.
And I mean, just look at the receipts. This isn't a fleeting issue. Way back in '62, you've got the legendary Thomas Kuhn calling the field fragmented. Fast forward to '78, Paul Meehl says it lacks theoretical integration. Then in 2009, Jerome Kagan says it lacks a coherent identity. And as recently as 2020, Scott Graham just flat out says there is no central theory. Decades and decades pass, but the diagnosis is exactly the same.
So you'd think they would try to fix it, right? And for a while, they really did. The scientific community knew this was a massive problem. In fact, creating a single unified framework wasn't just some side project. It was the main quest. It was the mission they had to complete for the science to actually mature. But then something weird happened. They just stopped. The challenge started to feel too big, too complicated. And the top minds in the field basically decided that unification wasn't just hard, it was an impossible dream. And with that, they gave up. They walked away from their own mission, essentially content to live in a broken, fragmented discipline. And this is where our story takes a sharp turn. Because, just because a bunch of smart people call something impossible doesn't actually make it so. It just makes them stop looking for a solution. So what happens when a solution shows up anyway? Well, meet the Unified Behavior Model, or UBM. It wasn't designed to be just another niche theory. It was built from the ground up to be the direct answer to that 150-year-old call for a simple, elegant, and unified framework for all of human behavior. So how does it work? Well, the UBM is built around what it calls the behavior ecosystem, and it has just 4 elemental parts. It starts with cognition. These are the stories we tell ourselves. Those stories trigger our emotions. Our emotions then drive our behaviors, the things we actually do. And this all takes place within our environment, which, and this is key, includes our own body. Behaviorally speaking, a headache is just as much a part of your environment as a loud neighbor. It's a constant, powerful feedback loop. Now, this simple structure leads to a huge insight. We think of things like grit and discipline as ingredients we need to somehow find and add to ourselves. UBM says, nope, that's completely backward. They aren't inputs, they're outputs. They are emergent properties. It's like a hurricane. There's no hurricane particle. You just have heat, wind, and water, and when they align just right, boom, a hurricane emerges. You don't hunt for discipline. You align your system, and discipline is the natural result. So how do you align that system? You use the P.A.R.R. protocol. It's the engine of the UBM. First, you plan a change. You create a hypothesis for your behavior. Then you act on it. You run the experiment. You record the data. What actually happened? And then you reassess, analyze, and iterate. If that sounds familiar, it should. It's the scientific method, repurposed for your own life. Okay, a simple, elegant map is great, but we have to ask the critical question. In a field that's already flooded with ideas, is this just another nice concept, or does it actually meet the rigorous standards of real science? To answer that, we turn to the legendary philosopher of science, Karl Popper. He gave us the gold standard. For any theory to be considered scientific, it has to be falsifiable. That means there has to be a way to prove it wrong. It has to make a bold, testable prediction and put its neck on the line. And this is precisely where UBM steps into the ring. It doesn't just offer a neat description. It makes a bold, falsifiable claim. It issues a scientific dare to the entire world called the No Fifth Element Challenge. The challenge is beautifully simple. UBM claims its 4 elements, cognition, emotions, behaviors, and environment, are necessary and sufficient to explain any human behavior. To falsify the entire model, all you have to do is find a 5th fundamental element. Find one thing that drives behavior that can't be accounted for by those 4. So, has anyone met the challenge? Well, the model was put through an intense stress test using multiple advanced AI models. They threw everything at it, consciousness, genetics, free will, you name it, and tasked the AIs with finding a loophole. The result? The AI models consistently concluded that every proposed 5th element was actually just a subcomponent of the original 4, or an emergent property of the system. The machines could not break it. Now, according to the principles of science, this is a huge deal. Once a falsifiable claim is made, and it withstands initial serious challenges, the burden of proof shifts. It is no longer on the model's creators to prove it right. It's now on the scientific community to prove it wrong by meeting the challenge. The ball is in their court. And this is where the story becomes almost unbelievable. After a century of drowning in hopelessly complex and fragmented models, the main critique leveled against this clean, elegant, unified system is that it's too simple. Seriously. After all that, that's the big counterargument. But that critique completely misses the entire point of scientific progress. Let's go back to Popper one more time. Science, he said, is the art of systematic oversimplification. The goal of a foundational model isn't to be as complex as reality, it's to find the simple, elemental rules that produce that complexity. The elegance of UBM isn't a weakness, it's the whole point. So what in the world is happening here? There's actually a term for it, institutional amnesia. It's what happens when a scientific field spends over 100 years searching for a unified theory, declares it impossible, and then, when a model that meets all their criteria finally shows up, the institution has completely forgotten it was even looking for one. You might be thinking, okay, this is an interesting academic drama, but why should I care? Well, it matters because a fragmented science can only produce fragmented solutions. Broken models give us broken tools for fixing real-world problems. The potential here is absolutely transformative. Because UBM is so simple, it's universally teachable. Imagine a world where understanding your own behavioral operating system is a foundational skill taught in schools just like reading, writing, and arithmetic. It could be the fourth R, self-regulation. This would shift our entire approach from reactive treatment to proactive education.
So the model stands. It has answered the century-old call and issued its scientific dare. The only question that remains is whether the field it was designed to unify will wake up from its institutional amnesia and finally find the courage to engage with the very thing it once claimed was its most important quest.